Scientists say everyone dreams. Our brains are made for dreaming. God holds the keys to our dreams, and you can understand His messages. Access blueprints from heaven. Hear the whispers of the lover to his bride. It's time to master the skills. Access biblical decode instructions and unlock the secret love language of God to you. Scientists say everyone dreams.
Is this any better? Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Yes. All right. Sound issues. Yes, I was having sound issues. Okay, we're back. It's good to be back. Super excited to get started today. So we're just going to jump right in, and I will start with Lisa Cortez.
Hi, thanks for getting me
Hey,
on.
Lisa. Yeah, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay. I was somewhere with someone and they told me to look down. I did and noticed the ground was sand, but it had designs in it. Next to it was white sand and it had a different design in it. Suddenly, I was lifted up and carried away.
Somewhere with someone, right?
Right.
So interesting. A lot of times in dreams, when things aren't important, they're blurred or they're gray or they're something that we don't know the details. If it's not important who you're with, then it'll be something like somewhere with someone. And so I just wanted to explain that to people that may be hearing that for the first time and feel like that sounds intentionally vague. So you were told to look down.
Yeah.
And you saw designs on the sand.
There was sand and designs in it.
Do you have any idea if you were on the beach or if you're not sure where you were, other than that you were
It
somewhere with
surprised
sand?
me that I saw sand. It surprised me that I saw sand. I don't know where we were, but no, we weren't at a beach. They just told me to look down, and when I did, it surprised me that I saw it.
Okay, all right. Do you have any idea what the designs were?
Um, I'm gonna say like rectangle type design.
Okay, so it wasn't like the fish that the
No.
early Christians would draw in the sand.
Mm-mm.
That's the first thing I thought
Mm-mm.
of. Okay, so the idea of looking down is the idea of looking at the base, at the floor level, at what's under your feet. Um, the scripture comes to mind, thy word is a light unto my feet, is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. And so that's what this dream is it's bringing illumination to your foundation, to something that you're standing on or that you're walking on. So the rectangle, it doesn't sound like the shapes have much more than a level of ambiguity to bring to the table. So I think it's the idea of examine your foundations. Now, of course, the other thing that comes to mind is the parable of the person that built their house upon the rock versus a person that built their house upon the sand, which I'm sure that's something that you've already figured out.
Right.
So because we don't have any idea who the person was or where you were, there's a lot of context that's left out. So it's more of a general message for you, the idea of look down, examine what you're standing on, examine where you're at. It's interesting too that you said in the dream that you were surprised you were standing on sand. So you expected to be standing on something else. So the fact that that surprised you, you might need to find out what particular part or area of your life that's referring to. Okay. Now, one of the things that's interesting is you said there was a rectangle. So to me, a rectangle is like the outline or the foundation of a house. There's some houses that are square, but a lot of them aren't really square. They're a rectangle in some way, they're either wider or deeper or whatever. But other than that, we don't get any other idea that it could be a house. I'm just saying it could be the foundation of a house. A house, of course, can mean the destiny, the legacy, the ancestral heritage of your family. It can mean things like that. Look at literally where you've come from, because if you're looking down at the ground, you've obviously walked to get to that place somewhere. And so it's the idea of looking down and having an understanding of both where you came from and what you're standing on, what would be the launch pad for wherever you're going to go. So
what about the white sand that was next to it that had a different design in it?
Do you know what the design was in the white sand?
Mm-mm.
When you say next to it, where was it exactly?
Well, I guess where I was, when I looked down, there was sand, and then I guess there was a definite delineation, a line. Oh, a line in the sand. Line, and then the other side of it was white sand.
So like 5 feet away, 10 feet away, right, left, front?
Oh, not very far. I'm going to say, yeah, maybe 5 to 10 feet away.
On which side?
My right.
A line in the sand on the right. That's interesting. So again, that's the idea of that could have political overtones to it, of course. But it's something that's a little bit distant from you. It's not something that you're not standing right at the line. The line's 5 feet away. It's off to the side. It's not directly in front of your path. So a lot of times dreams can have multiple meanings. And so this may be yet another layer of what this dream would mean, which is the idea that presumably a line in the sand is drawn by someone, particularly in the area of conflict or negotiation or diplomacy, right? Somebody draws a line in the sand, and the idea is if you cross it, there's consequences. But a line in the sand is also like a delineation. In Christian terms, a lot of times we view it as a fence. You're on one side of the fence or the other. Get off the fence. You hear terms like that. So a line in the sand means there it could be, or there is coming in the near future. Excuse me. There is coming in the near future a decision that'll have to be made by those on the conservative right. So that's what I get out of that. Like I said, not a whole lot to that, but just some interesting things to take and look at. And remember, of course, dreams are an ongoing conversation with God. So this is just like a sticky note, but it could be part of a bigger discussion.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your dream, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Let's do Marianne.
Hi, John.
Hey, Marianne. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you. Thank you for spending time on my dream.
Absolutely.
Okay. The setting of this, I had a sense that it was nighttime, And I was in a room I've never been in before. It had a door to the outside. I was with a number of other people, and I never actually looked at them, but I had the feeling that maybe it was 4 or 5 other women. We had been doing something that we thought of as spiritual warfare. There was a knock at the door, and we hesitated, feeling cautious, but not exactly fearful. I approached the door and opened it. There was a man outside that had a dark appearance, very tall, so he had to slump to see in the door, and he exuded power. He reached in and grasped the top of my head, lifting me up off the floor, although not hurting me. And he spoke in a stern voice. He asked something to the effect of, "Do you realize what you made me do, and that it took me all day to undo it?" And that's when I woke up.
So where were you at the beginning?
I'm in a room. It's nighttime. I'm in a room with other people, and there's a door to the outside. And I've never seen this room before.
Okay. Do you know who the people were?
No,
Just generally a
no.
group of women praying?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, the character, now, did he pick you up, did you say by the top of your head, or like
He
grab you
did, by the very crown of my head. He just lifted me up off the floor.
Was he like a 9-foot giant or something, or?
Probably, yeah. He had to kind of bend down to look through the doorway.
Okay. And not obviously somebody you were familiar with.
No,
Okay.
no.
Did he have a nefarious presence or an angelic presence?
I wasn't afraid of him, but at the same time, he was dark as far as, dark hair, dark countenance, and clearly not very happy at the moment. But I didn't feel any fear, and he didn't hurt me.
Okay. That's really interesting. It sounds like in the context of the dream, and by what I understand of dream language, it sounds like cause and effect. What you were doing in that room had an effect somewhere on someone else.
Yeah.
And this was a person that was knocking on the door. To me, it doesn't sound nefarious. It sounds more of, I think of Michael the Archangel, and those that have seen him have said that he seems to be either in a hurry or slightly ticked off most of the time. And so the idea that he would pick you up, and he had something that basically it sounds like you dictated his actions for the whole day. You did something that it took him all day to undo or to accomplish, or what
To undo is how he put it. Do you realize what you made me do, and that it took me all day to undo it?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. And when he picked me up, it was, I kind of had the feeling it was like to get me on eye level. I mean, he was really looking at me.
Well, it definitely sounds like a representation of a supernatural being. Somebody that was super tall. The fact that they knocked on the door and didn't kick the door in reminds me of something that would be, Jesus said in Revelation, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." And so that's indicative of the idea of preference and wanting to be invited in versus wanting to just barge in. So it doesn't sound like spiritual warfare. But the idea of you did something, or you caused something to happen that he did that it took him all day to undo. Read read what he said to you exactly, if you could, please.
Do you realize what you made me do, and that it took me all day to undo it?
Yeah, so it's interesting because it sounds almost like a mistake. It sounds like he did something that he didn't want to do, or he repented of. He had to go back and undo what was done. Excuse me. And so again, that to me doesn't sound like an angel. I don't see angels as doing things and then repenting and undoing them. So this could be a level of like a principality. But it's interesting that, do you realize what you made me do? It took all day to undo it. Huh. Yeah, I feel like it's a result of something that you've been sowing into or praying into, or something happening in that regard. Um, so I'm not sure. We don't have enough information in the dream to know exactly what that was.
Mm-hmm.
It does sound like it could be a result. Yeah, it could be a result of intercession. It sounds like it's something that has to do with actions that you took. And again, because of the way that dreams unfold, I feel like it's actions even that you took in that room. So there was something that was happening um, in that room. And so this is something that a lot of times, well, not necessarily a lot of times, but what happens sometimes is we get what's called a continuation dream, where you may dream more about what's happening. And so you'll come to a deeper understanding of what that is. There's also dreams that begin to just kind of steer your mind or your direction towards, excuse me, towards a level of understanding or a depth of understanding about a particular topic. So again, I feel like there's there's something in a, and again, I believe it's a spiritual warfare capacity, because what I saw in my mind's eye was Michael. So it's either something that's been defeated and then had to try to undo whatever it was that you did. It sounds like, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Like you bound something and it was trying to solve the problem that you put the impediment in its way, which lets you know, I think two things. It lets you know that your prayers are powerful, but it also lets you know that the work's not done. Because if you caused it to do something that it then had to undo, it's not a completed work.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if there's something in your life in particular that you're praying into, doing spiritual warfare, something that's on your heart that you're contending for, I feel like you need to continue that.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Marianne. Have a good one. All right. Sorry, I'm yawning. Sometimes I yawn, guys. I had a bout with COVID, and so I'm still getting the breath back. It feels like some days. So I drink a lot when I talk, and I yawn. So, by the way, wanted to bring something to your all's attention, and that is this. We are on the His Glory Network starting tonight at 10 p.m. every Tuesday night and Sunday night at 10 p.m. We're doing the Dream Interpretation Show Tuesday night and Sunday night at 10 p.m. When I was in Ohio, I got to be in the studio with Pastor Dave again, and we made that announcement. But for those of you that haven't seen that announcement, it's super, super exciting for us. We're very happy to partner with the His Glory Network and to be a show on their network. Pastor Dave is doing, and his team are just incredible. They're doing some amazing things. And like I said, we're excited to be part of the His Glory family. So, my good friend Diane.
Hi, friend.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a couple of years, but it's good to see you.
It's been a while. Yeah, exactly.
I love it when my friends are like, "You're into dream interpretation? Hey, can you interpret my dreams?" And I'm like, "Come on the show," and then they do. That's awesome.
Jump on. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned something about yawning. I'm like, John, we are boring you to tears.
No, I assure you it's not that.
I know. I've been through it. Okay, so let me share with you what it is. It was very brief. It was very impactful, I felt like. So that's why I reached out to you. So I'm standing at the top of an icy mountain, and there is someone standing to my right. I don't know who they are, so they may not be important. Like you said, I don't know who it is. Straight ahead, if you look down, we were at the edge of the cliff of an icy mountain. If you looked down at the edge, our only way out is if we jump, we would certainly die because it was a really high up ledge. But I go to the left and I literally go down like a slip and slide, kind of like an avalanche at the top. You're just sort of like at the top of an avalanche on top, just riding it down. And in my brain, as like a lucid moment, I'm like, this is easy and this is fun, you know? And so it was this fun sort of, and I remember getting to the bottom and thinking that I was so glad that I chose that it happened that way, because it certainly would have obviously ended in death. I mean, like, it's pretty extreme.
Not preferential.
Not preferential, but I went that way, and sort of the tail end of it was like, well, how easy was that? And that's sort of how it came about. And I don't typically remember dreams, and that I remembered.
Wow, that's amazing. I love this dream. So did you say you had to jump, like you were in danger, somebody was pursuing you or something, or it was just the only way down?
It was the only way down.
Okay.
It wasn't like a panic-stricken type dream. It was just like, okay, the only way we can get out is to jump, and this is going, and we're going to die. Awesome.
I love that feeling. It's a feeling of weight. I actually, I just sent out a letter to kind of a New Year's letter where I talk about the weight of that particular moment. In fact, I actually feel like I should read it to you. So I'm going to pull that up because I feel like it's part of the interpretation. So it's super interesting that we just sent out this letter to people that are on our mailing list, and really just a lot of friends, you know, welcoming them to the new year and just encouraging them. But we sent out with it a picture, and it's a picture of, it looks like the front of El Cap, like the north face of El Cap, on a guy that is about to jump, like he's base jumping. So
yeah, exactly. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Let me find this for you, because I feel like this is pretty cool. Let me get this picture for you too. I gotta share my screen real quick so you can. All right. So I don't know if you can see that or not. But
that looks familiar.
Yeah. So it's the idea of, you know, this guy obviously has already jumped. So it's just being at the top of the cliff. But the top of the cliff represents a decision point in your life. It represents an area that you need to make a determination on what you're going to do next. And this is what I talk about. Greatness is coming, and it's headed your way. The fruit and faithfulness of the last season will be evident in the hyper acceleration of this new season. I would say get ready, but I would wager that you already are. Many of us are standing on the precipice of the greatest moments of our lives thus far. We are feeling the weight of history and the culmination of years of preparation. And now it is time to jump, to launch, to propel ourselves headlong into our futures with everything that we have and all that we are. Moments like this define our lives. It is in the moments of shift or change of direction, the pause before the flight, when the calm breeze is at your back and the large expanse of the unknown lies before you, beckoning you to jump. It is in this moment when warfare is intense and we evaluate ourselves and we hear the silent whisper say, "But am I enough?" Taste that moment, feel the weight of your history and the history of your ancestors heavy upon you as they lean forward in the cloud of witnesses with anticipation of your decision. Will you launch or will you shrink back? But we are not of those who shrink back, and the launch itself is imminent. It is decided because of who you are. Your identity and destiny brought you to this place. You would not be on this cliff if you are not the one to jump. And though for some there is hesitation in the moment, it is really just the Selah, the pause and reflect before the adrenaline rush of catapulting into the purpose of your existence. So feel the moment, feel the rumblings in the pit of your stomach, the nervous energy in your knees, feel the trembling of your heart, the chill down your spine, and the goosebumps on the back of your neck. Live in that moment, take it all in, experience it to its fullest. But who taught you that those feelings were fear? No, it's the anticipation of the history you are about to make, of the moment that you are in. It's simply a herald of the greatness to come and a sign that you are on the right path. So feel it all and then jump.
So two things, okay, that you just said, not to take over your video here, but two things. Number one, you said that you don't feel like you're enough. I have a podcast called Don't Worry, You're Enough.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Number one. Number two, Selah, which in a meditation, it's a unique name. I know it's not a name, but in a meditation, I had like my spirit, if you believe in spirit guides and things like that, angels, their name was Selah. So two things jumped out at me. And I know Selah is a typical biblical sort of word. But those two things jumped out at me when you were saying that. And that's all very recent. So,
well, it's awesome too. And obviously the idea of being on a mountaintop and also an icy mountain, I believe, reflects the season. It's coming out of a season of winter. Mm-hmm. And it's like the only way out of this is to jump. You could stay there, but how long are you going to live on the top of the mountain? And so I love the fact of what happens. And of course, in our picture, it's a base jumper. So what feels like an intense moment of, oh my gosh, am I going to die? How am I going to survive this? This could be really bloody and nasty and ugly and hurt a lot, or just be a sudden splat, really turns into this fun, exhilarating ride that you're like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Right. That was so cool. And it's, and again, it's the whole idea of trusting Jesus. So I feel like there's been something in a winter season, at least it's been a winter season in an area of your life that God is challenging you to take the jump. And he's letting you know that it's going to be a whole lot better than you could possibly imagine.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So cool.
Thank you.
So yeah, when you jump, let me know and let me know how it turns out.
We'll see. One step at a time.
That's all you need is one step if you're standing on the edge of a cliff.
Woo!
Whee! Awesome. Thanks for calling in, Diane. Appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. Bye. So cool. It says in scripture, the testimony of Jesus is the word of prophecy. It's the idea of what he does for one, he'll do for another. So that word could also apply to your life. It's not an accident that you're here with us today or that you're tuning in. It's not an accident, the people that are sharing their dreams. And a lot of times we see a theme, check your feet, check your foundation, what's underneath you, what's around you. Take the risk, take the jump. Your actions have consequences. So a lot of good things that are happening today. Stuart, let's take Stuart next.
Hello, thank you. I was
Hey, how are you?
so stressed because I couldn't get StreamYard to work, so I just got on my phone.
Cool.
I told our Sunday school class that all dreams come from God, and I saw resistance, shaking heads. And my friend Don Town spoke up and said he had a nightmare from when he was 28 years old. That would have been like 1987. I said, well, I'm going to find an interpretation for you because I haven't been able to unpack it. I was driving down the street and I saw a car that was driving into a lagoon. I got out of my truck, grabbed my chainsaw, and started cutting a tree that had fallen on the car. Then a sheriff who was on the scene grabbed me by the throat, pulled out his gun, rolled us into the street, and shot me in the head. A car then ran over both of us, And the next thing I knew, I'm running through the woods and I jumped the fence. Some people were there, and the governor said, "Let's not forget about the young man." That's it.
Interesting. This is a really cool dream with a whole lot of symbology. So he talked about how he was driving his car down a road, sees a car going into a lagoon. There's a tree on it, jumps out of his truck, grabs a chainsaw to cut it down. And then the sheriff pulls up, and then the sheriff grabs him, and he's in the road. And both of us got, or is that him and the sheriff that got ran over?
Yeah, the sheriff grabbed Don and by the throat and pulled, grabbed Don by the throat, pulled out his gun, rolled us into the street. I think like pulled Don down into the street and shot him in the head.
And then a car
ran over both of them. And I said, "Don, did you die?" And he said, "Yes." But then he said, the next part is, the next thing I knew, I'm running through the woods and I jumped the fence. Some people were there, and the governor said, "Let's not forget about the young man."
Does he have any idea who the young man is?
He does not, that I know of.
Okay. Did he ever find out who was in the car?
No, he doesn't know any of the people that he mentioned to me.
All right, cool. Yeah, this is the idea that he's traveling along in his car, going about his business. A car represents his work, his vehicle to destiny, whatever he's doing in his normal life that's carrying him into the future. In the midst of this, he comes along somebody else that's really getting bogged down. They're getting stuck to the point that, their life could be in danger. And so what he does is he stops. First of all, he stops his momentum. He gets out of the car and he goes to help. So he takes the tools that he has, which is a chainsaw, and he cuts the tree that presumably is pushing down on the top of the car to push it further into the lagoon. And so he cuts the tree to be able to free the person that's getting stuck. So in the process of literally creating freedom for someone with the tools that he has in his truck, which again represent his career or whatever it is that he does on a daily basis, he's apprehended by a legal maneuver. So the sheriff represents a legal play, not necessarily a criminal play, but a legal play. And this obviously sounds like a dirty legal maneuver because the sheriff does not appear to be acting lawfully in what he's done. He's shooting somebody in the head for cutting down a tree and helping somebody that's in a lagoon is obviously not an appropriate response for law enforcement. So again, law enforcement, I don't believe represents police. I don't believe it represents criminal action against him. What I do believe is it represents either a legal play, as in something that has to do with court, getting sued potentially, God forbid, or somebody doing some sort of injunction or legal maneuver, and or also the spirit of legalism, which is probably more likely the spirit of legalism because we can clearly see that this is figurative. So when it grabs somebody by the throat, the attempt there is to stop the voice and to choke out someone's breath. So a spirit of legalism that sees him helping somebody that clearly can't help themselves. This could play out like somebody that owns a business suddenly deciding that they want to hire a homeless person. So they're using the tools of what they do, and they're chopping down the tree, which is what's holding them down, drowning them from a financial perspective, trying to push their head underwater. And so the whole idea is rescuing that, and somebody else who's not involved in the rescue at all, who should actually be helping to rescue. And this could even be like a pastor, somebody that should be helping somebody that could be like a homeless person or an unemployed person, comes and instead of helping, the first thing they do is they try to take the voice of the person that's doing the helping. So again, not a literal dream, figurative dream. But the spirit of legalism is trying to take his voice and then literally tussles with him, like rolls him onto the road. So it's the idea that there's a struggle there. And, again, if you're going to shoot somebody in the head and you have them by the throat, why not just shoot them in the head? Why would you throw them unless either they wanted to make it look like there was a struggle or your friend was struggling back, which it doesn't sound like by his verbiage that he was struggling back, it sounded like all of this were the actions taken on the part of the other party to throw him in the road. And then what happens is a car, somebody else in their vehicle to destiny, moving along the highway of life, comes and runs over the both of them. Well, it's not really a big a big matter of consequence to him in particular, because he's already been shot in the head. So at this point, whatever damage is done by the other person, the third person now, the fourth person in the dream. So the first person in the dream is the person is the dreamer. The second is the guy in the car in the lagoon. The third is the sheriff. And then the fourth would be the driver of the vehicle. So now whatever happens from this fourth person, literally it's like being thrown under the bus, right, is of no consequence to the dreamer, because he's already dead to whatever this situation is. He's had his voice taken away. He's had his mind blown. That's the whole idea of being shot in the head. His mind is blown by the treatment that he's receiving from somebody that you would think would be coming to help and assist me. And it would actually be part of their job to help and assist. But instead, they're capturing me with the spirit of legalism. They're ignoring the actual victim of the situation. They're trying to choke me and take my voice. Then they're rolling me into the street and shooting me in the head. So whatever it is, there's a point that after the surprise is over, where his mind is blown and his voice has been taken, where he's just over it. He's like done with the whole situation and he's dead to it. So what happens next is something runs over him and the spirit of legalism, which is really more of consequence to the spirit of legalism than it is to him. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is he transitions to now this new place, and now he's running in the woods, hops over a fence, which means decides to violate a boundary, right? Or is on one side of the fence and gets on the other side of the fence. So there's a decision or probably a boundary. It could be a political boundary. Because of what this dream is talking about, it may be a religious boundary. It may be the idea of leaving one church and going to another church, where people are, I would never go to that kind of church, and they go to that kind of church, and then, they're on the other side of the fence. Being on the other side of the fence, now they see a much, much higher legal authority, which is the governor, and the governor is saying, let's not forget the young man. I feel like, and this is just a sense, and we don't know from the information in the dream, like the young man was the driver of the car in the lagoon. But I also feel like this is almost like if you ever save somebody's life, you get invited to like an awards dinner, and the mayor or the governor or somebody is presenting an award for thank you for your citizen heroism and jumping in and saving the life of. So I almost felt like it was kind of that type of thing, that it was some sort of acknowledgement for the work that he did in helping this young man that was stuck in the lagoon. So it seems like, and it's very vivid for a reason. It's very vivid because there's either something that he already went through, and you may tell him this or show him this. And by the way, we're going to send you the clip of this. And
I asked him to be on here too. And if it's relevant, this would have been 87. He didn't get saved until 2000. And he had a pretty rough background as far as I remember his testimony.
Yeah. Well, it could be one of the reasons why a spirit of legalism, particularly, again, it's a person of authority too. I just feel like the spirit of legalism typically is a religious spirit. And so the idea of it being somebody in authority, to me, it's like a pastor. It's like a pastor persecuting somebody for doing something that they should be, like taking care of the poor or taking care of an ex-con or giving somebody an opportunity to be gainfully employed in a business. And it's something that the pastor's not doing and he's doing, and now he's getting persecuted for that. And it, first of all, he tries to take his voice and then it blows his mind. Like, why the heck is this guy doing? And then he's just over it. He's dead to the situation. And now he's in this other place. But that spirit of legalism is going to get what's coming to him as well. There's consequences for him in what he's doing.
That's cool. I can't wait to hear from him. I had broken out the symbols and got some of the words that you mentioned. Just couldn't put it together. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very cool dream. Tell him thanks for sharing. And if he if you get a follow-up story on it, we'd love to hear it.
Great. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All right. I love ones like that. Those are just fun and amazing and full of imagery. Let's go with Amy Scott.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. My dream is I went somewhere with my childhood friend Jill and her family. We were at a brook or canal in our backyard and it was frozen over. I feel to walk on it. There are cows underneath the frozen water. They were looking up at me. They were happy and wanted to see me. All the younger cows wanted to play if they could break through the ice. They were so happy to play. Then Jill was in a machine that kind of spun around like a hurricane, and it looked like a fun dream, a fun game and dream.
Your childhood friend Jill, when did you know her?
All my life. We're still friends.
Is she okay? Is she her age now or the age that she was when you were kids in the dream?
We were probably around our age now. We were adults.
Okay. So Jill represents something. A lot of times a childhood friend can represent either a season in your life or can represent something that has to do with your relationship with her. Like there could be something you guys did as kids or some guy you both dated or I don't know, whatever. It's just something that you could mention something and you both would like bust up laughing, like you would know exactly what it was. And I feel like she has a particular meaning. And you don't have to share it, but it's something that you're probably thinking of it right now. As I mentioned this, you're probably, well, yeah, there's this thing. It'll just come to mind. So do you know what I'm talking about? Are you having any thoughts?
Well, I moved from there, so we just kind of grew up, played in the yard, played as kids. You know, we're like Merry Christmas kind of, in contact now.
Yeah.
But it's just somebody I grew up with, so you're kind of friends because you grew up with them.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Do you know the place that the setting was in the dream?
It looked different, but it was technically our backyard. We had a brook going along all our backyards, but it was much larger than it is in real life.
Okay. So was it flooded or it was just larger in the dream then?
It was just larger in the dream.
Okay. And are
frozen
there
over.
normally, do you guys have cows back there typically or no?
No, not growing up. We didn't have cows.
Okay. So in your backyard, it would be unusual for there to be cows, particularly cows frozen underwater or looking up at you.
Yeah, well, they were alive under the water, a little animated, but they were under the water.
Did they look like they were
The
struggling?
barrier. Pardon me?
Or did it look like they were struggling, like they were trying to get out and breathe, or like they were just happy?
No, it's like they just wanted to get out and so they could play, but they weren't struggling.
Do you know how many cows there were?
There were a lot of cows.
Okay. Do you know, were they all young cows, baby cows, or?
I don't think they were all young cows, but the ones that drew my attention were the younger ones that wanted to come out and play.
Okay. Cows represent the economic base. They represent years of plenty or years of famine, like in the dream of Pharaoh in the Bible that Joseph interpreted. So young cows literally represent the economics of the future of our children, what's coming down the road. And so literally though they seem happy and young because they're probably unaware, they've literally been put on ice. It's the idea of freezing assets or freezing an economic base. And so I feel like there's something related to the world around us that's happening right now. And I feel like this is a bigger picture than just you and your childhood friend. I feel like it's something that God is saying about what's happening in America. And again, it's the idea that decisions are made that are causing, there's certain people in the public eye that have talked about a dark winter And they've kind of put that on the American people and said, if you make this decision, here's what's going to happen to you. And if you don't, here's what's going to happen to you. And I think they're just ignorant of the fact that a person in authority has a level of declaratory authority to say things in the spirit. But it's interesting that the cows seem healthy and they seem okay, which to me is the idea of restoration. It's the idea of what Joel talks about when he said, and afterward I will restore, but before the afterward, he said, I will restore the years the locusts have eaten, the locusts that I sent among you. The idea of locusts in particular, the nation of Israel at the time was an agrarian society. They survived on mainly grain, new wine, and oil, but all plant life. And so in Joel 1, there's 4 plagues of locusts that eat the leaf, the branch, the root, and the stalk, which represents the sudden catastrophic failure of an economic base. So it literally like wipes out. It's like the fall of the derivative market and the dollar on the same day. It's like you go to bed and everything's fine, and you wake up and a loaf of bread is $100,000, which has happened in other countries. People are afraid that it could happen here. Well, what that does is it freezes the economic base of the future of our children, especially if it's allowed to continue. Usually there's a point where it's reversed somehow. And if it's something that's sent by God, God says, once our hearts are turned back to him, that he'll restore that economic base. And then, people continue on. And usually after that is when there's an outpouring. God uses a lot of times economic difficulty. I wrote a book on biblical economics. And so I can speak with a level of authority on this, that God uses economic issues, in particular recession and depression, to turn the hearts of a nation back to him. And nothing gets people running to God quicker than you touch their pocketbook. And he knows that. And he used it throughout all of history and even all of biblical history. There's time after time after time in the Bible where there's recession or famine that's caused, people run back to God. And he's like, oh, well, now that I have your attention, do what I told you to do. And then they like rebuild the temple or rebuild the wall or do whatever it is that God asked him to do. And then he just restores the years, which would be the idea of breaking the ice and letting the cows out. So it seems fun, which means that there's a level of particularly economic judgment. Judgment is really a decision made of God to affect an outcome in the human realm. But there's a judgment call where, like, God knows that he could restore your finances in a heartbeat. So, but if somebody loses their job, they can feel like it's the worst thing that's ever happened in life because they feel really insecure. They don't at that moment, they're not starving. They're not, they might be living paycheck to paycheck, but the second they lose their job, there's all this emotion because it's all fear of the future. Whereas if you trust God, there's no fear. There's no fear of the future. And when you turn your hearts back to God and he restores it, that's like you now getting a job making double what you made before. And when you get to that place, you're actually glad that you lost the job to begin with. And so I call it's like the idea of no harm, no foul. It's not something critical that can't be undone. It's something that God can restore it in a flash 10 times better than it was. And I've seen it happen in my own life over and over and over again. You get to the point where you just don't even stress about finances anymore because every single time that it looks super bleak, God restores it. And so I feel like the fact that the laughing cows are under the ice is the idea of a level of economic prosperity. Scripture also talks about God being he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. So again, it's the idea of economic abundance. There's multiple examples in scripture. There's a verse in Psalms that talks about the 10,000 times increase on flocks and herds. So again, cows, ranchers, a 10,000 fold or 10,000 times, not 10,000%, 10,000 times increase, which is incredible. It's way bigger than the 30, 60, or 100 fold that Jesus talks about in the parable of the sower. So again, it's interesting that you're there with your childhood friend. You're in your backyard or her backyard?
It's like our backyard. There was just 3 houses and
Okay.
it was just
the collective backyard.
Yeah, the collective backyard.
So the backyard also represents your own territory, but also something in the past. So literally the decisions that are being made and that have been made in the past have a cumulative or cumulative effect that is going to cause a potential freezing of the economic prosperity of the next generation. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing these economic cultural plays that are being made by various administrations that nobody wants to work. They just want to wait for the next stimulus, and nobody wants to pay their college off. They just want the government to do it. And they're doing it intentionally. It's all done as part of a grander scheme to try to initiate political systems that the United States has consistently rejected over the years, to try to indoctrinate the next generation into these systems and then put them into practice by giving away free money. And it's worked. It's worked to an extent that a lot of restaurants that you go to, they have 3 servers and they have a help wanted sign. And a lot of people that were doing work before aren't doing that. Add on top of that, the fact of the lockdown and the mandates. And again, we're not a victim of circumstance. This all takes prior planning. This is something that was done intentionally and still continues to be done intentionally. It's no fault of, it's not, the news and the government wants to pretend like, oh my gosh, we didn't see this next wave coming. They've been talking about the next wave. They named the next wave 6 months in advance. It's all part of an agenda. They're losing a grip on controlling the narrative. People are getting frustrated. They're getting upset. They're seeing through the constant holes of the flip-flopping back and forth from one position to another, and they're done. And so now they're going to try to institute another set of lockdowns. And if that doesn't work, then they'll try a different disease. God forbid. But what's happening is people are getting really, really wise to, you see the way that governments, particularly in other countries, even places like Canada and Australia, are acting, and they're acting absolutely crazy. Like they've completely checked out of all level of common sense and science and everything else. And they're not following any constructive narrative that makes any sense anymore. And very, very soon, the people in all of these countries are going to get fed up to the point that they will take they will rip out a line from the Declaration of Independence where it says, when a government it doesn't no longer takes care of the people, they will alter or abolish that government. And frankly, that's what needs to happen, because there's corrupt governments all over the world working in concert to try to implement a global narrative. And God is pointing this out, and it's a harmless dream with you and your childhood friend in your backyard looking at the smiling cows in the ice. But it has, God didn't want to scare you with this dream. I think he wanted to let you know that it's going to be okay, and that the cows are still alive and they're just on ice, which means he can unfreeze it and, allow the prosperity to be there for the next generation. Where people, if you talk to people that don't have that view, they're saying, well, we're eroding wealth that we'll never get back, and this and that, and our kids, and blah, blah, blah. And it's a non-faith based narrative. So I think it's interesting that God is saying several things. One, look and see what's happening in your own backyard. Two, realizing that the economic struggles that a lot of people are going through and the worries that we may have as mothers and fathers about what would be happening to the next generation, God can fix in a heartbeat. And three, the idea of the hurricane. Your friend was in a ride, you said, like a hurricane. Mm-hmm. Hurricane is the idea of reaping the whirlwind. And it's the idea of judgment, particularly on the wicked. When the wicked are judged, the righteous rejoice. 1 Corinthians 13, the quintessential verse on love, says love does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. Well, the truth right now is highly inflammatory, and it's being censored, and lies are being pumped down our throats at every turn. And when the truth comes out and people are in jail and justice prevails, and this crap that they're trying to implement all over the world on civilian populations, and even in particular in our own country, fails utterly and miserably, which it will, Their plan will not succeed. Their pandemic will not succeed. Their attempts at socialism and control in America will absolutely, abjectively fail in every way, shape, or form. And the pits, as it says in Proverbs, that they dug and the traps that they built, they will fall into.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of people being upset when certain people are going to end up with the disease that they manufactured and created. We're not wishing harm on anyone, but I think the evil and the wicked will see their due. And again, it was presented in such a way that it was kind of an innocuous dream. It was kind of a fun dream. You're there with your friend. You're in a familiar place. You see the cute little cows in the water. Your friend's on like this carnival ride. But what it's really talking about is it's talking about the judgment of the wicked and God preserving the wealth of the nation for future generations for the righteous.
Wow, I thought it was a short, silly dream that I could send in.
This is why
I have to re-listen. This is
why I have people write all their dreams down, because what seems like, oh, that was just a tasty bit of cheese. It was just pizza. It was just, there's no such thing as pizza dreams. They do not exist. God may speak to you in a way that you can flat out ignore it and then you'll never know. Or he can be talking to you about the condition of the prosperity of future generations economically, if you're willing to listen and if you're willing to, as we say, go down the rabbit hole and hear what it is that God wants to say. And sounds like you're one of those trusted people, Amy, that God likes to whisper in the ear, plant things in your spirit at night so that he can tell you the secrets of what's happening in the world. And that's really cool.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that with us. Very encouraging. Yeah.
Nothing like I expected. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care. I love it when God does that. You look at a dream that you think, man, this is simple. It's easy. It's not complicated. And actually it's anything but. It's that's why we do what we do. We love. We love this. So Laurel.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Do you have an echo?
No, I do not.
Okay, great. Well, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
So this is my son's dream. He mentions a couple people. One, Kevin, my son is Matt. His business partner is Kevin. And they own, their company refinishes hardwood floors.
Okay.
So this is his dream. He says, I was with Kevin in his pickup driving around a coastal town. That's on the West Coast, probably, he said. It was a rough day. I was on a phone call with a contractor who was talking to me about doing a floor for him. The conversation was going really well, but one of us has started to lose signal. And so I went outside of the pickup and went and tucked my head into a ditch or culvert in the ground to have it act as a windbreak. At this point, I asked, can you hear me? He then slowly kind of made this connection that I was a guy that did a floor for Rob at Full Circle Property Services. He then started ranting about me being a liar. It's like he was Rob's boss or something. I got incredibly disappointed at this point, and I asked God, why would he have me on this call? I had an out-of-body experience where I was in the kitchen looking at a space where the fridge goes. God said to me, ask me anything you want, in a very gentle voice. I asked him, why was I on this call, what was going to happen, and what the point was. The fridge space then filled up with 2 black plastic trash bags, and the Lord said, he's going to call you a liar and a trash bag, then hang up immediately. Then the dream ends and I wake up.
Really interesting dream. There's a lot there. So he's in a pickup truck, his friend's pickup or his business partner's pickup, and it doesn't sound like he's driving.
No.
Okay, so he's part of somebody else. Who owns the company that he works with? Is it his?
It's his and his partner, Kevin. They're
Okay.
co-owners.
All right. So then if it's a company truck, then it's kind of like both of theirs, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Because of the business context, I feel like it has to do with finances and or business. It sounds like a business call. They're in a business truck. He's with his business partner. So that's a recurring theme that we see in the dream. There's a bad connection. And so he gets outside of the pickup. Are they still driving down the road when he does this?
I think they've stopped at this point. I don't know if they stopped because there's a bad connection and he gets out, or if they were already stopped. That's not clear to me.
Okay. Yeah, it was. I pictured him climbing out the window and getting into the back of the pickup, and somehow thinking in the back of a pickup with the wind blowing that'd be a better place to hear somebody on the phone. And I'm like, we might need to readjust our decision-making paradigm at this point.
He would totally do that too.
Just like cold water scuba diving, right? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but the idea that then he mentions like being in a culvert. So it's obviously they pulled off to the side of the road. He goes down in this ditch. He's in his jacket. He's trying to cut out the sound. So basically what there is he's on a business call and there's a level of interference. He's trying to mask or to dissipate the level of interference, to clear it up so he can literally clear up the call. And there can be no longer a misunderstanding between the situation. Now, it's really interesting that the guy's name is Rob from Full Circle. So to me, it's the idea of something that's come full circle, something that is either something that was done wrong that needs to be redone, something that kind of came back again. It's a 360-degree turn.
Okay.
And so they're talking about this 360-degree turn. And he suddenly starts asking God, why is this happening? Why am I involved in this? This is obviously an unhappy customer. What's going on? Why is this guy yelling? So he's seeking divine intervention in understanding what the issue is. So there's a business communication breakdown that he tries to remedy. There's something, whether it's a project or the situation itself, that's come full circle. And now he's seeking divine help on understanding what to do next to resolve this issue, which is a good place to go. It's at that point that he's now in a different scene. He's out of his body. He's looking where a refrigerator should go. Now, this could be a project-specific thing. There could be, well, we redid a floor for somebody and we cut corners where the refrigerator was going to go, and we didn't think it'd be a big deal because nobody will ever see it. So God could be showing something specifically related to a project that maybe he did with this guy, Rob, or whatever. And he would know that, right? Either that, or it's the idea of here's the kitchen is a place of preparation. You're either preparing food or you're cleaning the dishes, preparing for the next time you prepare food. But most people don't hang out, as a matter of course, in the kitchen, though you can prepare food and then people come over and you can sit there on the island and eat finger food or whatever. But typically there's activity related to preparation or cleanup that is occurring in the kitchen. So as they come out, or as he's kind of in this out of body experience, he sees this gap, this place, this space where a refrigerator would be. And so God is showing he's showing him something in particular. It could simply be the idea of something out of place. What's out of place is a refrigerator, and I hear let cooler heads prevail. So it could be the idea of there's something out of place, let cooler heads prevail, and then God begins to tell him, now here's what's going to happen. This guy's going to say this to you, and then he's going to say this to you, and at that point, hang up. And so what's really interesting is God is giving him the divine download that he asked for. Well, no, he's not. He's asking, why did this happen? And God is giving him the plan to how to navigate through what is happening. Okay. So what did he ask God exactly?
He asked, why was I on this call? What was going to happen? And what the point was.
Okay. So God shows him there's something about the kitchen. I feel like there's a project they did in a kitchen somewhere that is a point of something that he needs to go back and fix. So his first part is, why is this happening? Boom, he's in the kitchen. The second, what is going to happen? God is saying, here's what's going to happen. And then the point is left to be determined. God didn't directly answer the point. It sounds like the last communication from God was, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and then hang up immediately. And so basically it's the idea of cooler heads are prevailing. It sounds like this guy, Rob, is a little off the rocker, but when he decides to bless out your son, God is like, set a boundary. If he says this, okay. If he says this, now you hang up. And so it's the idea of cutting off the communication, whereas before the communication was a level of static. It was trying to tune in to the right communication. And so he gets a divine strategy from God that says, here's, there's something in the kitchen, the place of preparation, that'll bring this whole thing 360, the level of understanding, and continue to talk to this guy, but set boundaries. Don't let him mistreat you in the way that he talks. And it may actually be that the whole point is this may be, because what I see happening is if, he hangs up on you, typically either somebody calls back or they decide to have an in-person meeting, right? And an in-person meeting could be the point. It could be the resolution to whatever the problem or the issue was.
Okay, then why do you think so? Any more information on, so when he has the out-of-body experience, he sees the fridge space fill up with 2 black plastic trash bags.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that part. So they're full trash bags.
That's what it sounds like, if they're filling the space.
Yeah, well, it's the idea that the trash needs to be taken out. It's interesting because there's 2 black trash bags, and then weren't there 2 things that God said he's going to say? What did he say that the guy was going to say to him?
He's going to call him a liar and a trash bag.
Okay, that's what it was. So 2 different things.
And hang up immediately.
And so that's the whole idea of taking out the trash. It's interesting that God says that, and he illustrates it figuratively too. That's like a double emphasis. So that's the idea of don't let him treat you like trash, cooler heads prevailing, because that's the place where the refrigerator would be. It's the idea, take out the trash, which means we're going to cut it off. I'll let you call me a liar, but then you call me trash. That's it. We're done. I'm out. Literally, like, I'm out, like, take out the trash. Like, I'm not going to put up with this any longer. So it's really what it is it's a diplomatic strategy that God's giving him to deal with this situation.
Okay, then
part of it is patience and listening, and the other part of it is setting boundaries and not putting up with being mistreated. But God tells him he doesn't say, okay, hang up now. Let him call you a liar, and then let him call you a trash bag. And those are the 2 trash bags. And at that point, take it out. Done. Exit the conversation. So I feel like God is giving Rob an opportunity to repent and to realize that this will not be, trash talking. Scott has a good thought. This could be something that actually occurs in real life. This phone call could occur in real life. It could be something that maybe there's something that he needs to fix with this guy, Rob. And again, so there's 3 things that happen. He tries to get better communication with the static or the volume, whatever the issue is. He moves to a different place to try to get to hear the other person better. And then he seeks divine help. And then God gives them divine help, which is to continue listening, but also, excuse me, to set a boundary. And the boundary is don't let him trash talk you.
Okay. Any thought on why they're driving around a coastal town since they live in Idaho?
Well, unless it relates to a particular job, which I feel like if like they did a job in a condo, I don't know, in a, like if they did a job in a gated community or something and the name of community was like Seaside,
Okay.
then they would, it would make sense. I feel like it's something that he's going to know. And if he was here, I'd say, have you done anything in a place recently, particularly for this guy, Rob, particularly for Full Circle, that had any relation to being near the coast or a coastal town or a name like that? It's probably a play on words. But I feel like God is giving him some really key things in here to identify exactly what it is. And I feel like this is, from a big picture viewpoint, this is just an opportunity for Rob to begin to ask God about things, about divine intervention in his business.
For Rob or Matt?
Matt.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, your son.
Okay, yes, just checking.
Yeah, and I feel like God is going to give him, he's giving him very particular pieces of intel.
Okay.
That when this call happens, remember that kitchen that you guys did at Seaside Village and you messed up behind the refrigerator? You're a liar and a piece of trash. And it's going to be like, wow, this is like, so it's using figurative language, but I think there is definitely a literal component to there being something that needs to be resolved and God giving a strategy for how to resolve it.
I think there is some very literal things in here from what he described to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
That was, yes. And so my last question would be, up at the very beginning, he says, I was on a phone call with a contractor who was talking to me about doing a floor for him. And it sounds like that contractor was Rob's boss. So is there anything about him doing work for this contractor who has some connection to this guy, Rob, at Full Circle Property Services?
Well, it's interesting that it would be his boss, because typically contractors, unless they're subcontractors, contractors are pretty much their own boss. They run their own business. So unless if this guy works for somebody else and the guy owns Full Circle and Rob is an employee who's a certified contractor but is working in a company where somebody else owns it, then that's a different thing. And it doesn't sound like his beef is directly with Rob. It sounds like it's with somebody either over him. It could be the superintendent on the job. It could be the construction company that Rob's company was hired for, which would make sense, because if Rob was hired to do a job and he brought Matt in as a subcontractor to do this job, but it was done for a construction company that builds like a tract of homes, then if they have an issue, they would call the contractor, and the contractor said, hey, I didn't do that. This is the guy that did the floor. It seems to me unusual that guy would call Matt. It seems like he would hold Rob accountable and have Rob figure out what he needed to do to get in touch with Matt to have Matt fix it. But again, the idea of coming full circle is Hey, we're back.
Yeah, you froze for a moment.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think it's the idea of God is using that illustration in particular about the idea of something coming full circle. It may not actually be Rob or Rob's company. It may be a project that's come full circle. I do believe it has to do with his work. And I do believe it has to do with the business or the company. And when he hears this, he may know immediately what, it's confirming.
Okay.
Sometimes God will give us downloads of exactly the entire situation and we'll call it out prophetically. Other times I feel like God is just like, you just need to say enough that it confirms in them. And especially the way that we do live dream interpretation, where I'm not standing before Pharaoh and my attention is focused on one person, where we're getting a bunch of these. It's enough for me that the other person knows what I'm talking about. And I don't even really need to know the rest of the story per se, just that they do. And so when I say certain things like, well, maybe it's this, and they're like, oh, yep, know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, great. As long as you got the download, that's what we needed.
Right. Sounds good.
So
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks for sharing.
All right. You have a good rest of the week, weekend, whatever day of the week it is.
Yep. All
Blessings.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right, Jen.
Hello.
Hi there.
Okay. I had two dreams about clothes. The first one, my ex-husband stood on the basement steps to tell me he was leaving me while I was pulling clothes out of the dryer in my childhood home. In the dream, I
Can
was
you start
buying a
over? I'm
house.
having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
You had two dreams about what?
About clothes.
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 Okay.
In the first one, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little soft,
Okay.
but I'm turning the volume up.
Sorry.
That's okay.
In the first one, my ex-husband came downstairs to tell me in the basement where the laundry room was, to tell me that he was leaving me as I was pulling clothes out of the dryer. It was in my childhood home, and that we were buying my childhood home.
Okay.
In the second dream, I was getting ready for church, and every shirt that I put on was dirty, and I was doing laundry, and nothing would come out clean.
Interesting. So the first one, you're in your childhood home.
Yeah.
Your now ex-husband, you're taking clothes out of the laundry. He shows up as you're taking clothes out of the laundry and says he's leaving.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So there's something related to being in your childhood home that represents, it could represent a time in your life, like when you lived there, or something in your family that you're dealing with. Where's your laundry room in your childhood home? Is it in the basement?
It's in the basement. Yes.
Yeah, I felt like it was in the basement. So being in the basement represents getting to the foundation of something. And I believe it's related to your family or your bloodline, something related to something in your family that I feel like is dealing with the idea of rejection in particular.
Okay.
But it's at a point where, see, when we wear clothes and then we've worn them for a while, they get dirty, we throw them in the washer, they're half done, we throw them in the dryer, they're completely done, we take them out of the dryer, and it's the idea of something fresh and clean and new. And it's warm, and if you're cold, you want to put on, your sweater or whatever that just came out of the dryer. And so the idea of freshness or newness, it reminds me of Isaiah 43:18 that says, forget the former things and do not remember, or do not call to remembrance the things of the past. For behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Can you not perceive it? And so what God is saying with that verse is, forget what's behind you. And obviously he's probably behind you because you have if you're in the dryer pulling stuff out, then he's probably seeing your back. And so you're obviously not face to face with the guy,
Yes.
right? And so it's the idea of forget what's behind you and look at the new thing that I'm doing. Now, clothes in particular represent like a mantle. They represent a mantle and they represent a level of identity. How people view us a lot of times is based on what we wear. People don't see our physical body because our physical body is covered. And so when we go to church, when we go out to the store, when we do all that, people know us by a lot of times by the way we dress and the way that we carry ourselves. So the idea that God is going to give you a fresh new mantle at a time of rejection or a time of rejection in your past is an encouraging word. So that's the first part.
Okay.
So the second part is you're getting ready to go to church and your clothes are dirty and they're not getting washed, they're not coming clean. What was that part again?
I was putting on shirts, they were dirty, and then I would do laundry, and nothing would come out clean.
Okay, this is
And I
interesting.
remember feeling that I had to hurry up because I was going to
Because you were going to what? Miss church?
miss church. Yes, if I
Yeah.
didn't find something clean, then I was going to miss church.
Okay, this is the idea of a perpetually dirty clothes. So something is either much deeper wrong with the clothes or something is wrong with the washer. But there's a problem in that what you're trying to do to clean your dirty clothes is not cleaning it to the place that you're able to present it to the general public, in particularly your church family. You don't want to go to church with dirty clothes on because it's the whole idea of literally airing your dirty laundry. Now, as a couple of people are picking up here in the comments, this could be related to your ex-husband. I don't know if there was, and you don't have to share any of that if you don't want to, but just the idea that a lot of times people get divorced because of things that they don't want to tell the whole rest of the world about.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea that there's something there that needs to be clean. And I feel like there's something there that you're going to wear as a mantle, which could be like if he committed offense against you, and I just want to be very careful here. I don't want to speculate, but I'm just going to talk about two things. In a lot of situations, this isn't you, but related to divorce, there can be physical abuse or there could be sexual infidelity. Those are the kind of things that nobody wants to tell all their friends at church. But if there's damage done, which means there's dirt that's been done, in order for you to continue to move on, you either have to get new clothes or you have to clean that. And I feel like it's like a cleaning of the soul. People talk about after the end of a relationship, particularly like a marriage relationship, when it's done, it's over, there's never going to come any way back. It's the idea of like releasing a soul tie. And part of that is simply the idea of forgiveness. And any amount of trying to whitewash and not forgive and carrying an offense isn't helpful because it doesn't solve the problem. It's like rewashing a set of clothes, and every time you do, throwing crayons in with them. It's just like you're just going to make more of a mess. It's not going to get clean. And so God is talking to you about two things, about parts of you that he wants to show the world, which again is the idea of putting on clothes, and that's what they see. And also the idea of a mantle, which is a level of authority and a level of power that you will walk in. It can be like a gift, like a prophetic mantle. Excuse me. Could be like a mantle of healing. It could be a mantle of teaching. But I believe that there's something new that God wanted to give you, fresh and new and clean, right at the time that this rejection occurred. I'm not saying that he rejected you, but when the marriage split, he's your ex, right? When things broke, that was the old that God is saying, forget, and behold, there's something new. So it's like the exchange right at the time. In the dream, he was telling you, presumably for the first time, hey, I want to get a divorce. And so it was right at the time of the end of something, God was giving you something new. But then there's the idea he's not in the second part of the picture. It's you getting ready to go to church to present literally yourself to your friends and your church family. And there's something that you can't clean, which I believe means, I don't believe it's clothes at all. I think it's particularly talking about the idea of either a soul wound or something on your heart that God wants, he wants you to leave in the past. And we talk about, the blood of Jesus will cleanse us whiter than snow. It could be sin, your side, his side, it doesn't even matter. It could be unforgiveness. It could be repentance. It's a level of redemption that needs to happen that only the blood of Jesus can wash this clean and give you the grace to allow those stains to be gone. So then it can be exposed. The whole new spotless garment can be exposed to the world, in particular to friends and family at church.
That makes a lot of sense. It's something I've been dealing with for quite some time. Learning to forgive and working through my past. So, yes, it does quite a bit of sense, actually.
Yeah, I would be really encouraged. Just let me encourage you with it. I mean, the fact that, first of all, God knows the situation. He knows the situation enough to give you a dream. He knew that you were going to call in today. He knew that I would be able to hear what the symbols mean without having to go into the details, because part of it is you don't want the exposure. You don't want the exposure of the dirty laundry. You want to get the laundry clean. So what needs to happen is God needs for you to know what the dirty laundry is and what the remedy is. He doesn't need the world to know. But also the idea of the divine exchange, I think, is really, really deep. The idea is at the point of an offense or at the point of a break in a relationship, God is giving you something that's brand new, which is a new level of identity. It's also a new level of a gifting or something from him that you walk in that the world will see.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yes.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, cool. Thanks for sharing us that dream, Jen. That's amazing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good one. Awesome. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for today. I saw a couple of people ask some questions, and I'm going to try to see if I can go back and find some questions. I saw some general questions. Oh, one of the questions was simply, what new show are we going to be on? And so that would be this. And this is going to be on all our social media, but we're pleased to announce. And we announced this on the Take 5 on Pastor Dave's show on the His Glory Network. He invited me to be on the His Glory TV network and to do live dream interpretation. So what we're doing is we're having the show. It's going to be Tuesdays at 10 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. So basically, we're going to rule the night. So you can tune in to hisglory.me.live/now, which again, that's airing tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's also airing Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern. So look for us on the His Glory Network. We're just so thrilled to be able to be there and super excited for what's going to happen this year. We got a lot going on with the Dream Life Decoded. We've launched a new dream course, we call it, for people who just want to get better at dream interpretation. Now, this is kind of a crash course in dream interpretation. So if you don't know anything about dream interpretation at all, like if you're still like asking questions like, does God speak through dreams? And does he still speak today? What I would suggest is do the Dreams Through the Bible Study series. It's free. It's on YouTube. It's one of my playlists on Dream Life Decoded. By the way, if you follow us on Dream Life Decoded on YouTube, we send out notifications and messages. We have some interviews coming up. We have more live dream interpretation. And we break these down into each individual dream and release them like just a little intelligence brief, like 5 or 10 minutes long. And people seem to really like those. So if you don't want to watch a whole hour and a half, 2-hour show of dream interpretation, but you like the dream interpretation stuff, go watch a couple of clips. We put those in a playlist. You can watch 100 of them. You can watch 2. But we designed the dreams course in particular for people who are interested in learning, kind of diving into dream interpretation. And it's like a lab, because I do a little bit of teaching and then you're doing dream interpretation. So the first module, we teach you the Joseph method. For those that are familiar with the Joseph method, it's the method by which Joseph used to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh in the Bible. So it's the quintessential dream interpretation section of scripture. It's probably some of the most quoted of all dream interpretation. And there's things like the first dossier, it's the first reoccurring dream, it's the first dream that's interpreted with a level of actionable intelligence on a national policy level. There's so much that's happened. So we take that dream and I break it down. And then at the end of the first module, now it's a go at your own pace course. You're not in a class. You can do it all in one sitting. You can, which would be a feat if you could do it. It took about 12 hours to film it. But then what you do is there's a dream at the bottom, and we have the dream separated. I have the dream and then the symbols written down. And then all you need to do is go through the process that I've taught you of how to interpret the dream. And you interpret that dream and you write it all out in what we call a dream report. Interpret the symbols, add a conclusive summary, add actionable intelligence. We show you how to do that. Once you get that done, you start the next module. In the next module, I'm taking that dream that you've already done and you're watching me do everything that you just did. And so you see me identify the key symbols in the dream and to interpret the key symbols and then to add in the conclusive summary and then add in the actionable intelligence. And this came out of a desire for so many people that have said, we want to know if we're getting answers right. We're interpreting dreams, but how do we know if they're right? And so we wanted to give you an opportunity to do a dream that I've never seen before and you've never seen before. And you get the first shot at it. You get to go do it. And then you get to compare to what I'm doing and to just see, maybe you're hearing from God in a different way. But a lot of times he's going to speak the same to both of us. And certainly we're going to end up at the same place of conclusions and actionable intelligence. And so when you hear the dreams course, that's what that's about. That's only available at dreamlifedecoded.com. Now, the other thing that we're doing, which a lot of you are already familiar with, is the idea of the spiritual intelligence mentorship. This is huge. We have so many exciting things we're doing this year. But if you've never been involved, go to spiritualintel.com, spiritualintel.com, and it's scrolling here below, and you can see at spiritualintel.com where you can apply for the courses. We ask you to, I think we have it all filled out on a form to just apply. Let us know why you would want to be involved in the spiritual intelligence mentorship, what you would bring to the table. Fill out a minimal amount of information, but we do want to know a little bit about you, and then apply for the course. Now, if you've done Sim 1, we have Sim 2 available, which is the next level above the first spiritual intelligence mentorship. Now, if you haven't done anything, either do the Dreams course, the Dreams Through the Bible Study series, or get involved with Sim 1 first. Now, spiritual intelligence mentorship. We have an organization called the Spiritual Intelligence Service, where we are working with some government entities, some CEOs, some of the people we're working with, we can't tell you who they are. But what we do is we're training actual government level or high level business analysts in dream interpretation that can speak into the realm of leadership in all 7 areas of influence. A lot of what we do is on a governmental side. So it's like an actual intelligence group or agency, but we consult with people not based on typical spycraft or tradecraft, but based on the tools that God's given us, just like the tools that he gave people in the Bible, which were things like dreams, visions, and prophecy. So if you're interested in that, and that sounds really cool, check out spiritualintel.com. Hop in on Sim 1. If you've done Sim 1, do Sim 2. If you've done Sim 1 and Sim 2, do Sim 3. A lot of people did Sim 2 and then took a break over the Christmas, the last quarter of last year, but they want to jump back in, and then we're going to have Sim 3. Each group, Sim 1, Sim 2, and Sim 3, have a completely different focus, and they're progressive. So you get in deeper and deeper and deeper. And those that have graduated from Sim 3 are in a special class all by themselves. We have a group of about 45 highly trained analysts that are working on real world intelligence with us in the spiritual intelligence service. and they're entering the next phase of the training. And it's all kind of on the job training working with us. So that's absolutely amazing and fun. But again, if you're not interested in the governmental level or in consulting with leaders, if you don't feel like you really want to do dream interpretation for other people, you just want to understand what your dreams mean, take the dreams course. I believe it's the best dreams class that we've ever seen, and we built it because we saw a need in the market that nobody was filling. We didn't see anybody else that was really showing people how to actually do dream interpretation themselves and then giving them the opportunity to check it. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to show you a little bit of information about the dreams course. And then we're going to sign off for tonight. So thank you so much for being with us. And again, look for us on the His Glory Network, Tuesdays at 10 p.m. and Sunday at 10 p.m. We'll be there and you can watch. And by the way, the show that we're airing tonight will not be the show that you just saw. So it'll be different. So love to have you join us on His Glory Network. So thank you, and we will see you next week.
Scientists say everyone dreams. Our brains are made for dreaming. God holds the keys to our dreams, and you can understand His messages. Access blueprints from heaven. Hear the whispers of the lover to his bride. It's time to master the skills. Access biblical decode instructions and unlock the secret love language of God to you.